Great.
All right. Just we can go ahead and get started then. Shan, do you want to kick us off?
I'll just get started. I'm super excited for this call. Doug, thanks for being here, and thanks everyone else for joining. I'm a month and a half into the job, and the first few weeks I spent speaking with many of our orchestrator community members, getting their feedback on the community. And one of the common points of feedback was a ton of insight on the demand side and what's going on. And this call, I think in particular, is a really great chance to shed some insight on the really exciting and good work that is happening on the demand side. And Livepeer Inc. is a participant in the Livepeer community, just like our orchestrator community. So I think this is a true community call today. We have folks from the core team on the call, as well as our orchestrator community and lots of other members in the extended Livepeer community as well, to discuss the exciting announcement of the Livepeer Inc. acquisition of MistServer. So we hope everyone participates on this call with your thoughts and questions. And Doug, over to you.
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks for setting this up, Shan, and thanks everyone for joining. As a reminder, this call is being streamed and recorded, so if you're participating, you might be live. We host these once every month or so, though we're getting a lot of feedback on the format and other formats that may work for people, so that may change. And this one, I was going to give a quick kind of update of the project generally, like I do once a quarter. Look at some stats and whatnot about how the network's performing, but then pretty quickly get into talking about the exciting news around the MistServer, joining the Livepeer ecosystem and what that means, and open it up for discussion around the demand side of what's happening. So let me kick off by presenting my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this slide. As a reminder, Livepeer's mission, building the world's open video infrastructure. I always want to remind people of that and have that be kind of the focus and guiding force behind everything that we're doing as a project. Gonna give some network stats and updates, a couple updates on livepeer.com product, talk about Livepeer MistServer, and then plenty of time for discussion and Q&A as well. Cool, so what's going on in the Livepeer network since July 22nd, when we had the last quarterly project update call? We have 2,913 delegator accounts that are active right now. That's up 60 from a quarter ago. I would expect that as we scale to layer 2 and make the cost of delegation a lot more cost effective, we will see that number rise at a much faster rate. We have the full allocation of active orchestrators, 100 active orchestrators on the network. That's all that there's room for in the protocol. Again, something that could be expanded post layer 2 scaling potentially. And then the participation rate on the network, that's the amount of token that are staked relative to how many outstanding token there are, has stayed very similar at 49% from a quarter ago. What's really interesting, we've seen it hover just above, just below 50%, which is a really important number because that affects whether the protocol is kind of raising the number of tokens it's going to issue each day or reducing the number of tokens it's going to issue each day. And we've actually seen the amount of tokens issued each day has actually risen a little bit this quarter for the first time in a while. I think, looking back on the July slides, I think we were issuing around 4,500 a day then, and today it's 4,700. So that's a result of being in that like 49% participation rate. And of course, the belief here is the network kind of finds the equilibrium rate that's necessary such that the mintable inflation is worth it relative to the kind of 7-day tie-up and opportunity to participate in the network versus liquidity. Cool. Minutes transcoded, kind of the number one metric that we always look at. The chart here shows kind of going back to early 2020, and you've seen really nice growth leading up to July, where I think the weekly high that we hit was around 2.4 million. About 2 weeks ago, we hit a weekly high well beyond that of 3.6 million minutes. Looks like last week it was back down around 2 million. It's been a little bit up and down. Some of this is probabilistically estimated based on the micropayments that are cashed in, but still on track and hovering in that 2 million plus range, which is nice and up from last quarter. So it's reflective of new apps coming on and apps growing their usage on the network, but still looking for kind of clear breakout growth as the product matures and products like Mist that we'll talk about become more and more Livepeer integrated. Similarly with fees, there was an all-time high hit of about $25,000 in weekly fees 2 weeks ago. Typically it's hovered in that $6,000 to $8,000 range, which is up and on a nice trajectory from previous quarter as well. Kind of access to LPT and liquidity. All these exchanges kind of added Livepeer in Q2, but it's nice we've actually seen kind of the volumes increasing, which means more organic market participants, easier access to LPT in both directions, buying and selling. And so, last quarter in July, I think the average daily volume was around 18 million. Excuse me. Whereas in the last 30 days, and this is skewed a little bit by some recent news, it's much higher. It's been around 54 million. I think the median was around 23 million or so still well above last quarter, but definitely been days with larger liquidity. Cool. Web3 collaborations. There's a bunch of projects that have been hacking around and building on Livepeer. We featured one of them, Glass.xyz, on our recent community call, so I won't spend too long on it, but definitely check it out. This is a cool kind of NFT-based media streaming application that's built on Livepeer and Arweave and a bunch of other tools. On the kind of network side, the Web3 index had a big and exciting launch. Livepeer is one of the featured projects on the index. We had a big hand in building it. Shout out to Adam Soffer on the team who put in a ton of work to make it happen along with Basement Studios. And it's been really nice because it's been featured prominently in the press and analyst and research pieces that highlight the growing adoption of Web3 infrastructure. And Livepeer being one of the kind of top represented projects there often gets pointed to as an example. It's been really great for raising awareness and pointing to Web3 infrastructure as one of the big next trends in crypto. The Web3 index shows how much these protocols are being used based on the fees that are being paid into the network. But something cool that launched independently is the Index Co-op launched a token called the Data Economy Index token. And it actually includes many Livepeer and many of the projects in the Web3 index using set protocol, and it gives kind of investors a way to buy one token that gives exposure across this whole Web3 infrastructure space. They call it the data economy space. It's slightly a different definition, but a lot of overlap. And I think that's a really, really cool product with big potential. Their other index token, the DPI, the DeFi Pulse Index, has, I think, $300 to $400 million worth of kind of issued tokens and money that's been invested into it. And so that's really the potential in a pretty short time frame for Data Economy Index. Cool. That's the kind of supply side network update. Could talk a little briefly about some of the stuff that's happened on livepeer.com and Mist. Any questions on supply side before I move forward?
I don't see any.
All right. Yeah, I see there's a chat here, but I'm in presentation mode. Cool, let's see. Okay, so just a couple quick updates on livepeer.com, which is a hosted gateway and kind of the easiest way to get started on streaming through Livepeer and building something on Livepeer. It's free to sign up and begin using, so anyone can check it out. One of the cool releases was multi-streaming. This enables people building on livepeer.com to configure the streams to also push to Twitch or YouTube or Facebook if you're so inclined and that's where your audience is, or any endpoint of your choice. This is a powerful feature that a lot of users had requested for the apps that they're building. Another cool release is Stream Health Dashboard. This is not the best screenshot because I wasn't streaming anything while I took it, but it basically allows you, as you're building a streaming app, to take a look at individual streams to see the health about the ingest and whether that's healthy, make sure transcoding and multi-streaming and real-time performance are up to speed, be really helpful in debugging and helping your users as well. I think this feature is in beta still, but definitely recommend checking it out. And then the kind of exciting recent news on the demand side was just announced this week. It's that our company, Livepeer Inc., which is one of the kind of core developers and employers of a lot of the core team in the Livepeer ecosystem, made our first acquisition. And we acquired a company that builds a product called MistServer, which is an exciting piece of software that I'll talk about. And the team, this company is called DDV Tech, but the DDV Tech team is a product and engineering focused small group in the Netherlands, just outside Amsterdam. And they're joining Livepeer, and they're another core team that's going to be developing great video software in this ecosystem. So it's really exciting. So I'm going to shift into talking about that. Cool. So I don't have a lot of slides on this. I just have two, and then kind of open it up to kind of discussion about the vision and possibilities and whatnot. The kind of big vision is that we're going to combine the world's best video software, the best open source media server, essentially, with the world's most affordable and scalable video infrastructure, right? Livepeer's made tremendous progress on the latter there. We have this open network that provides affordable, scalable, reliable infrastructure for video streaming. And we've built some software that lets users build their video workflows and access this, right? One piece of software is the Livepeer node itself running in broadcaster mode, something that is pretty technical. You have to run a node, you have to scale at multiple instances if you want to scale, you have to fund it with cryptocurrency and be aware of the blockchain, right? And so, at livepeer.com, which is kind of the next layer of abstraction, we use that node as the core piece of software that we build against, right? But that's a big barrier, and it's a hurdle for many people to use, right? So what did we do? We built livepeer.com. This is an API. This is an easier access point. It's easier to get started. It leverages that node in order to get started. And that's been a great gateway. That's driven a lot of usage into the Livepeer ecosystem and let a lot of people explore Livepeer before kind of building out and scaling their applications. But both of those, livepeer.com and the Livepeer node are pretty limited in functionality, just because video is so complex, fragmented. There's so many protocols, there's so many different workflows and tools, depending on your use case. And it would take 10 years to build across the majority of the features and protocols and technologies that everyone would need in order to meet all of their needs in video. So that's a long time and a lot of work. Well, the Mist team has been building this media server for over 10 years. And they have a lot of those features, and they have a lot of the users who have battle tested them and made feature requests and found bugs and iterated to get a lot of the video specific features working. And the result is this MistServer piece of software, which is really powerful and really incredible tool, and something that we also have leveraged through building livepeer.com by partnering with them and using it for several layers of our video stack. Some of the MistServer users have needed transcoding, and over a year ago, Mist integrated with Livepeer so that their users could, with the click of a button and a plugin installation, leverage the Livepeer network for transcoding, and that's driven a lot of the usage on the network today. And so MistServer is an awesome company with an awesome team and a great product. They have an open source version. They have an enterprise version, and the enterprise versions where they had built the Livepeer plugin so far. But our vision and the plan going forward is that we work closely to align roadmaps and execute on the engineering steps such that through an open source product, Livepeer can be accessed and enabled through this great media server by anyone. We think this is a really powerful combination. An open media server with an open infrastructure network that's coordinated by the Livepeer token and can operate in this decentralized kind of user-owned business model is really powerful and really difficult to compete with compared to kind of the traditional business models where you have to license an expensive media server and then pay a lot of money to a cloud provider to run it. And a lot of work to do, a lot of things to figure out along the way and combine and merge the technologies. But both teams are really excited about that vision and that potential, and we think can be great for the adoption of Livepeer. Cool. Just the last slide that I have is things that Mist enables. I already mentioned some of these, but to show some details, additional video capabilities for developers. If you're not a video developer, you might not be familiar with all these, but like ingest protocols like SRT and WebRTC and more, packaging and output protocols. So Livepeer does kind of this H.264 video delivered over HLS today, but there's many different streaming workflows that users use for things like low latency solutions and different types of applications. And those technologies are within Mist and being built within Mist. Longer term, I think it's really interesting to think about this media server as a better broadcast node for Livepeer, right? The broadcast node today is kind of limited to one type of live streaming use case, but Mist itself could be the broadcast node that's much easier for developers to build against, and it has a great user interface with a web-based user interface for configurations and stuff, so it's not all command line like the Livepeer node. I think that's really powerful. And of course, I mentioned this, but the Livepeer integration where Mist users can tap into Livepeer's infrastructure for scalable transcoding and eventually smart video features as well. So I think all of this is achievable in the medium term. In the longer term, it also becomes kind of a great basis and piece of software for things as Livepeer gets into and explores content delivery and distribution and other video capabilities outside of just transcoding. So really, really great base to build off of. So I will stop talking and presenting there and open it up for questions and discussion.
Thanks, Doug. That was great. I think we have a few people lined up with questions already. Titan Node, I saw you were ready to go.
Great. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Doug, for presenting that. This is some very exciting stuff. I have a few questions. I actually have 5, but obviously I'll just start with some of the big ones, and then I'll obviously let other people join in. The first question I have is, how does Livepeer plan on managing the developers of Mist and integrating them into Livepeer, and how does that look from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, good question. The Mist team works together in the Netherlands. They will continue, working on like Mist as a product, but they'll be they're part of Livepeer, they're part of the Livepeer team, they're already in the Discord and in the community, and you may have seen them interacting there without knowing any distinction between Mist and Livepeer. And one of the things we'll be doing in like the next 30, 60 days is just working to like align the roadmaps, short, medium, long term. Short term, they have a lot of stuff they're working on to create the world's best media server. Medium term, let's look at some like that tighter Livepeer Mist integration to make it easy between users. And long term is something we'll find alignment on through collaboration.
Great, yeah, thank you. The next question is, Livepeer, this is their first acquisition. So what in your opinion, what does acquisitions mean to decentralization? Like, how does does this create a centralizing problem, or how do you view that?
Yeah, really good question, right? So the centralized view of this, which is a large part of what happened here, is like there's a company, Livepeer Inc. It acquired another company. Now they're all one bigger unit essentially. So that feels like potentially more centralized, right? The kind of other angle of looking at it is there is a company that builds this piece of software that's outside the Livepeer ecosystem, and now they're more tightly integrated into the Livepeer ecosystem. They have kind of their focus and charter of what they're building, which adds this tremendous piece of value to the Livepeer ecosystem. And it's almost like there's an additional core development team being added to the ecosystem and aligned with the ecosystem and incentivized for this ecosystem to succeed with a new skill set that was not entirely missing, but super complementary and kind of accelerates things. And so I think that's a kind of decentralizing force, that there's this additional skill set in its own location with its own core unit developing towards this.
Great, yeah, thank you so much. I'll just ask one last one that's relevant to acquisitions, and I'll hand it over. Is the idea of acquisitions going to be a part of the growth strategy for Livepeer? And is that kind of like the beginning of a new trend, or is this a one-off?
This is the first time that we've done it, and I think it's always would be like evaluated on like a case-by-case basis as to like, you really have to have firm reasons why you're doing it, because it's a lot of work. Obviously, it's a investment in capital. There's a lot of risk in doing it. In this case, we had the benefit of like collaborating with this team for over a year, having really aligned and interested technical interest and product vision. The product was complementary and accelerates Livepeer's chance to success. So seemed like a no-brainer, but it's definitely not something we've considered just to where all those elements were lacking in order just to like grow faster or bigger or centralize greater, right? I think it's also really interesting to pay attention and learn what's happening in terms of like, acquisition is not even the right word, but in like the DAO space, you see DAOs deploying capital to other existing teams or DAOs in order to like align incentives and get them to become like a core contributor back to a project. And it doesn't look like traditional M&A, but it is really powerful and accelerating and decentralizing for projects. And I think that's interesting to look at and think about as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering. I guess I'll hand it back to Shan.
These are great questions, by the way. If you have two more, I'm sure everyone's benefiting from hearing the answers. So
I'm sure I can circle back. Yeah. Okay. I'll circle back. Cheers.
Yeah, we will definitely circle back to you, Dion. Thanks. Nelson has some questions next, I think.
Hey, Doug. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I just had, so firstly, and I'm a crypto guy. I'm not a video developer, so you have to excuse me if it's sort of basic question, but thinking about like Livepeer's sort of video stack, I guess to begin with, it was just transcoding, and then we're adding this sort of media server, I guess, software layer to that stack. But I know in the past we've talked about how like Livepeer sort of sees itself being a part of the open video stack and maybe expanding beyond just transcoding. Could you help us like sort of, I guess, understand what that stack looks like? And are there other parts of that stack you think there's a role for Livepeer to play? Or does having both under the one banner unlock possibilities combined that weren't sort of possible separate?
Yeah, so there's a lot that there's a lot of steps that are required to build an end-to-end video streaming workflow, right? You need to, give your users who are capturing and creating the video, a tool to capture it and to distribute it, right? You need to receive and ingest that video somewhere. You need to transcode it potentially. You might do smart video tasks and analysis on it. You might want to store it somewhere. You need to make it available to distribute on a global infrastructure, right? And like some of those things can happen on an infrastructure network. Some of them happen just kind of at the software layer on the client or on the player, right? And so, and these things have to work together. They have to talk to one another and be tightly integrated, right? And so, the Mist software has you could think of it kind of like a Swiss Army knife in a sense, in that it does many of these different capabilities that are useful in different elements in this workflow. So some people who have like content delivery type challenges use a cluster of these Mist servers in order to be their content delivery layer and load balance requests across the Mist servers and serve content, right? Other people use it to ingest and receive video from around the world and then outsource it to Livepeer in order to transcode that video, right? And I think like it's important to remember the big mission, like world's open video infrastructure. I think the open software that people use in order to build their applications and access that infrastructure is an important piece, even if, for example, not everyone chooses to use the software in order to push video through the Livepeer network. It's still a huge benefit to the Livepeer project if they build on the open software and embed it in their video workflows to accomplish the tasks that they need, right? Because you're familiar with the software, the more widely the software is distributed, the more widely it's adopted, the more likely it is that when people do need scaled infrastructure for encoding or smart video or potential peer-to-peer content delivery in the future, that they would check that Livepeer network button and leverage the network for that.
Mm-hmm. And one other question I had, I looked a little bit at Mist, and so I'm kind of guessing their business model before was like there's this open source client and then you can pay to use like a hosted version of the product. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, I don't know, is there a way to use the Livepeer network to like, do you think that needs to be decentralized, or do you think that ideally users just have the option to self-host the client, or there's some kind of hosted solution they can go to? Is that the right way of thinking about this?
So Mist's typical user relationship so far is a little different than what you described. It wasn't always paying to use a hosted version. It was paying for an enterprise version with additional features and or additional support, right? Like, and customization. And so, I don't want to commit to anything on this call about how that business model transitions, what the timeline looks like, next steps, right? There are a bunch of existing customers that are happy with their existing relationship and don't want anything to change on that front. But I can say, obviously open source is very aligned with our ecosystem and project, and their team is excited about that as well. And so, I think a model worth exploring is enabling people to be able, who want to use the open source version, to use this to leverage Livepeer, but to access the additional services as necessary to help them with their customizations, configurations, get up and running quickly, stay supported as they're building on the software.
Okay, that's interesting. And like reading a little bit about how MistServer can be used. Um, it sort of sounded like it'd be used for as almost like a content delivery network. Is that a fair way of thinking about how this can be used, or is it? It sounds like it's much broader than that, but could it be part of that
Yeah,
CDN stack, part of the live streaming stack, I guess?
uh, yeah, absolutely. It's I would describe it as like a tool that you could use to build your own content delivery solution or network, right? Like if you wanted to build a global content delivery network, then you could use MistServer to be like all the edge nodes on that network, and there is coordination and load balancing between them, and it speaks the video protocols to know how to distribute the video to the users and amongst itself. So that would be like one use case. Another option is, let's say we focus a lot on like user generated content and creator economy type applications, right? A lot of those the streams don't necessarily have millions of viewers each, right? They have 10 or 20 or 100 viewers each. Mist is really performant. It's a kind of low memory process. It's really CPU efficient. It's built in C++. And so, as long as you have the bandwidth to deliver video to your users, for a lot of these use cases, you can actually get away using Mist without a CDN necessarily, up to a certain level of scale. And then if you're going to have a super popular stream, you'd still probably want to put a CDN in front of that. But it really, you get closer and closer to a really low cost solution to build on open technologies and build a user generated content streaming app.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful.
Great questions. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised. If anyone else would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand with that option. Otherwise, Dion Titanode, we'll circle back to you for your other questions. I don't see any other hands, so go for it.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Shen. Yes, great questions, Delson, by the way. Awesome putting Doug on the spot. It's amazing. I love these. So one last question on the integration with Mist. What upgrades do you see Livepeer needing to do to integrate with Mist? What does Livepeer need?
So I'm thinking about what lens to take that question, because to reiterate, like there's already a great Mist plus Livepeer integration that leverages the Livepeer network for transcoding today, right? I think one of the if you just want to do the popular type of H.264 or HLS based streaming that exists today, then that already works and no changes are necessary. I think it gets really interesting in terms of what's the potential of what Livepeer could do in order to better serve some of the different use cases that Mist serves. One that I think about is lowering the latency. Low latency streaming is really interesting when you get to interactive use cases, when you want users to be able to interact with the streams and creators in real time and get that latency down below 6 seconds or something. Mist already has a number of protocols that work for low latency. There's one called LLHLS, which is something we're both exploring and testing that's coming out now. I think the Livepeer node software can make some changes to do. Eric could speak to like the details of this a little bit better, but like the linear based ingestion of the streams instead of the segment based, so we can get the latency down and avoid the extra couple seconds. These sorts of things are interesting. I think, we talk about Mist as a potential point for coordinating peer-to-peer content delivery and content delivery in general. It would be really interesting if the Livepeer network could provide some of the other services required for that, like running a stun service for navigating NATs and firewalls, which would be kind of an easy capability to drop into the Livepeer network alongside of just the transcoding. Ultimately, this is not solved for, but it'd be really interesting to think about is if the Livepeer network could actually be a global ingest network for any video that someone wants to capture and distribute. Right now, you would have to run, either Livepeer nodes or MistServers all around the world to do that video ingest. But we already have a global network of node operators who, would probably be willing to be those video ingest points as long as they could be compensated correctly for doing that and have the bandwidth. And I think that's another potential upgrade to Livepeer down the road. That's not a light update, but it would be really powerful.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. My last question is actually not related to Mist and all these kinds of things. It was earlier in the presentation, you talked about the multi-streaming feature that livepeer.com had put out, and I've personally used it. And what are the plans for Livepeer Inc. to keep producing, end user tools? Is that something that Livepeer wants to continue promoting or building out, or is that the multi-stream function and that were those just niceties that were given out, but ideally you still want apps to be the front end for the ingest? How does Livepeer look at like still building these end user tools?
I'm not sure I perfectly understand the nuance of the question. I would say, so we have the Livepeer network, and Livepeer Inc. is building the products and services that accelerate adoption to the Livepeer network, right? And so what can we do to accelerate adoption? We can listen to the users who evaluate building on Livepeer Inc. or are building on Livepeer Inc. and make sure that we have the features that they are asking for, that they need out of in this case, end-to-end streaming service, right? That leverages the Livepeer network for transcoding. And so, for now, at this phase of Livepeer's maturity as a product and a project, yes, it's still necessary that Livepeer Inc. Kind of listens to those users and builds those features to have, to grow the adoption. I think it will be a really compelling and interesting turning point for the project that we should all aspire to, is that you see, other third-party companies building vertical specific end user tools directly on the Livepeer network, using MistServer or the Livepeer node. And then, whatever vertical they're serving, let's say it is social restreaming to platforms like, YouTube, Twitch, etc. And they really nail that, then that's great. They can be a source of all that traffic, and Livepeer can focus on a different layer that's necessary to accelerate adoption.
Cool. Yeah. It's lots of long questions and hard to answer those. So yeah, thanks for answering all those curveballs, and thanks for taking the time. Cheers.
Sure thing. Cool. Not sure who else is on the call here, but anyone with anything to add based on potential of the Mist software roadmap, anything else?
I don't see any hands up.
All right, so getting towards the end, one thing we didn't talk about today, but is obviously a really big topic, is scaling. And we've talked about the path to moving to layer 2 in order to dramatically reduce fees for node operators and for token holding delegators. The proposal that's out and the network upgrade is codenamed Confluence. And there's some great posts in the forum that highlight the technical details in that path. There's also a higher level blog post that kind of describes that path and why it's important. Shannon, I think there's going to be a series of follow-up water cooler chats and calls on that subject specifically. So look forward to discussing that in the coming weeks. And definitely review those posts for preparation if you're interested in testing and following along.
Yeah, absolutely. With respect to Confluence, we're going to have the draft LIP coming soon, and I think this is the first governance proposal in quite a while for the community. So we'll be having a call next week, hope later next week or early the following, to kind of go through, just the process for the LIPs. And as this is the first one we've done in a while, look forward to getting the community's feedback on how we might want to improve this going forward as well. So stay tuned for that.
Excellent. All right. Any other topics anyone wants to ask about? All right, so I guess we can wrap it. Thanks everyone for joining this quarter's community call. We'll have the recording up soon, and you know where to find us in the Discord and forum linked from livepeer.org. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.